You ready for this game, Dion?
Always.
I'm ready for
Always.
this. I'm ready for this game. Gonzaga Houston might be the game of the first weekend, might be the game of the tournament. Remains to be seen. Two high profile programs, both top seven on Ken Palm. It's the first NCAA tournament matchup ever involving two teams that are on Sweet 16 streaks of at least 5 years, meaning that Houston has made the Sweet 16 5 years in a row. Gonzaga has made it 9 years in a row. These are teams with consistent NCAA tournament success. One of them is going home in the round of 32. We're here to break it down and try and figure out who that's going to be. We'll talk about both teams, but I want to start with Houston, Dion, because they are the top seed. What does Houston have to do to win this game? If the script goes according to the way Kelvin Sampson wants it to, what does that look like, and what is Houston doing well to make that happen?
I think they just have to control the ball, play their tempo. Gonzaga is going to want to do the exact same thing. So I think if they're able to play within themselves, to play their style of play, I don't believe that's what Georgia was able to do against Gonzaga. So I feel like that would be the best thing for Houston to do. Now the thing is who plays their brand of basketball against Gonzaga? Nobody. Flip that though. Who plays their brand of basketball against Houston?
Right.
Nobody. Nobody. So it's kind of like what's the saying? Like the immovable object versus the
Yeah.
whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know
The
what the other.
unstoppable force and the immovable object.
Yeah, that one. That one. It's kind of like that saying where it's just like, who's gonna blink first?
Yeah.
On KenPom Houston's number two defense, 11th offense, Gonzaga's eighth offense, 24th defense. These are two extremely talented teams, very highly ranked metrically. It's really just going to come down to a little bit, much like I won't say much like any game, but much like most of these games, star players, Juwan Roberts versus Graham Ike. I think it's going to be a big matchup here. But Houston also has Milos Uzan. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dudes on Houston. Even Terrence Arsenault coming off the bench is like crazy.
I think you have Gonzaga's offense, which is historically under few, phenomenal, right? You have
Mhm.
Houston's defense, historically under Kelvin Sampson, phenomenal. Those two going against each other is a lot of fun, but I think the game could be decided on the other end, where Houston's offense against Gonzaga's defense. Like, what second unit is better? I'm glad you brought that up. Do you have more faith in Houston's offense, or do you have more faith in Gonzaga's defense?
Um, I mean, coming off today, it's tough to not say Gonzaga's defense, but I do think it's Houston's offense ultimately. What sucks for Gonzaga is like that's not a knock on them. A lot of times in SEC play, you and I did a lot of the SEC videos when we were like watching against like Florida and Auburn. It's like, hey man, you're playing great, sick. You're going up against the two best teams in the country. And I feel like Houston's much closer to that grouping, and it's like Gonzaga's playing phenomenal. They're playing the best basketball of the season, maybe the best basketball they've played really since Chet was there, for what it's
Yeah.
worth. But you're going up against a team that's probably playing the best basketball in the country at the moment, besides Florida.
In Gonzaga's win over Georgia, they got out to that huge early lead. I think a big start is key for whoever ends up winning this game. But in that too, talked about Caliph Battle making 4 threes, scoring 20 plus, Nolan Hickman hitting 5 threes, being the perimeter scoring options, in addition to Nemhard being the playmaker he is, and Ek down low. For me, the keys for Gonzaga is that happening. You need scores to step up in the perimeter. You need Caliph Battle to be that guy. So Nemhard doesn't have that responsibility. He can score. We've talked about this, but he is a playmaker first. He's a true point guard first.
Right.
Is it that simple for Gonzaga, or what's Gonzaga's game script for winning this game?
I mean, honestly, I think their game script is just a lot of Nemhart, but not too much Nemhart, if that makes sense. Is
Mm-hmm.
if he can control the pace and keep the game flowing versus like Nemhart has to take over. I think that's the biggest thing that they could do to stay in this one. Ultimately, I feel like Gonzaga is going to be able to do that. The problem is like how much pressure is Houston going to provide to their guards? They kind of went up against a Georgia team that just let them do whatever. Houston's definitely not going to do that. Definitely not going to do that.
Who is the best guard in this game? Is it Nemhard? Is it Battle? Is it LJ Cryer? Is it Milos Uzan? Who are
This,
you taking it? Like if we had a draft, who are you picking first?
if we're drafting, I'm taking Milos by far.
Okay. Front court. You taking Ike or you taking Roberts?
Well, so that's interesting because Roberts is coming off the injury, so I think I'm taking EK.
Okay. Healthy. Let's say healthy. Take the
Fully
injury.
healthy,
Fully healthy. That change
probably
your
Roberts.
opinion?
Yeah, probably Roberts. I think that the difference between the two is I really think Ike is phenomenal. I think Ike is going to have a great career in Europe, within the G League, and I'm not trying to slight him. Like I think
Yeah,
he's going to play a very long time. Roberts to me is going to play in the NBA.
I see that. He can
Well,
fill a Reggie Evans-ish kind of role.
I was going to say like play might be a strong word.
He will
You
be on a
know,
roster.
he'll be on a roster though. He'll be on a roster.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Um, both these teams were involved in blowouts in the first round, like obvious blowouts from the beginning. I think that comes down to being ready to play. I would expect this to be a very competitive game from the jump. I expect it to be a competitive game at the end. But comes to the end, coaching comes into play, and we've talked about how good these coaches are. If we're going to draft, you're going to draft Kelvin Sampson, you're going to draft Mark Few. If
Oh,
it gets to that late game situation, who are you trusting more?
I think what's interesting is the stat you mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned in the beginning of this video or the recap for the Gonzaga game, the five straight Sweet 16s for both coaches.
Mm,
I think I'm going to take Few because that didn't surprise me when it came to Few. It surprised me when it came to Sampson, though.
okay. Yeah, Gonzaga has a way of flipping the switch in these games. And so I want to point this out with Gonzaga because this year and last year, they were pretty shaky during the regular season. I remember at one point last year, mid-January, they were 11-5 after losing at Santa Clara, and there were some questions about their tournament viability as an at-large candidate because they did not have a ton of high-quality wins, right? They got to the tournament. They played McNeese in the first round, McNeese team that just bounced Clemson. In that game, a team that had struggled offensively, made 10 threes, shot over 50% from the field. Then they beat Kansas, blew Kansas out to make the Sweet 16, keep the streak alive. Shot 53% from three, almost 60% from the field as a team. Against Georgia, they come out, shoot incredibly well, shoot 60% from three, again, over 50% from the field. Like, they have found a way to completely turn it on in these games. This is a team that shoots 35% from three on the season. And they weren't a great shooting team last year either. And then they get in these spots, and suddenly guys are wide open and they can't miss.
Yeah.
Is there something to like just tournament success and like a tournament recipe that Few has? Do you buy into that ability to level up when it gets to this time of year?
I mean, I do think Few levels up. I believe you can flip a switch. You know, there's been some quotes running around from some NBA dudes, Nikola Jokic, who say you can't flip a switch. I do believe you can. I do believe Few does. But I also think like they played against a team that's not very good in Georgia. And maybe I was just wrong about them and they got a lot of open looks. And I think whether it's March Madness or the middle of January, I think they would have hit those looks today too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Ken Palm expects this to be close as well, but Ken Palm has Houston winning this 73-68. It's a five point edge for Houston. Do you like Houston? You like Gonzaga? How do you see this playing out?
What's interesting about this is I don't know which one. I think that number is very perfect. Shout out Ken Palm, shout out Vegas. I think that's a very perfect number. If you're telling me Gonzaga only scores 68, I love Houston. I could see them winning or losing by less than five, but they're going to have to get into the 80s to do that.
Yeah, if the game is played at 75 or above, Gonzaga wins.
Yeah.
If the game is played at 69 or lower,
Yeah.
Houston.
And I think Houston wins by a lot too.
You do.
So if Houston can hold them under 70, I think we're talking about they win by close to double digits. If Gonzaga touches 75, I think it's a close game. If Gonzaga gets into the 80s, now we're talking about Gonzaga went out and won this game.
See, I think Gonzaga is a really bad matchup for Houston because they are going to put pressure on Houston to do things offensively. Houston wins everything with their defense dictating tempo, right? And just dictating the way you play, slowing you down. No one is as good at getting open looks, playing fast, playing the way they want to as Gonzaga, particularly with a point guard like Nemhard. So if they're able to score some, let's just say score efficiently. Let's not put a number on it, but score efficiently against Houston's defense consistently. They're going to put pressure on Houston to do the same thing as well. And Houston has shown the ability to do that sometimes, but not all the time. You go back to the first part of the season when Houston was 4-3, they couldn't score 70 against Auburn, and then they couldn't make the plays they needed to down the stretch against Alabama or San Diego State in overtime to win those games. It got to game pressure situations where they couldn't just get stops. They had to score too. They've done it since then, but I think that's the only way you can really get them. And Gonzaga's as well equipped as anybody to get that, as long as Caleb Battle plays well. I think he's the key. So I'm,
Yeah, I think a lot of pressure's on Nemhard too.
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
because
I'm,
if he
I'm,
lets the pressure of Houston get to him and he has some turnovers, they could get ugly.
yeah, I'm taking Gonzaga. I think they have a chance to. Again, I think it's a good matchup for them, a bad one for Houston, just in terms stylistically. But I'm expecting a really well played, high level, close game. It could go either way. Should be a lot of fun.
It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.